best thing, better than you've ever seen. I'm the new best thing, I'm gonna be the king. I bring that ching ching ching. Yeah, I'm the new best thing, I'm the new best thing.
Hello, welcome to Hedera Forum. We're happy to have you back for this, our 10th episode. It's a bit of a milestone for us, having achieved 10 episodes in a relatively short amount of time, and 3 or 4 episodes here in a very short amount of time, because Hedera just keeps coming out with impressive news, to be frank. And today's news, or this week's news, I should say, and today's guest is here to tell us about some of the most exciting news we've received to date. And we are very excited to be joined by Brandon with the Monetary Reset, as always. Hello, Brandon.
Hello.
And the man of the hour himself, Mr. Rob Allen. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Hey, guys. Really, really good. Pleased to be here.
I am sure that most of the Hederans out there, yes, I'm officially siding with Lehman on the Hederan debate. No offense, Mance. I like Hederian too, but I'm going with Hederan. I think this is something that everybody would be familiar with. Big news this week coming out that the digital payments processing, or electronic payments processing out of Australia, Eftpos, has partnered with Hedera to perform a proof of concept for digital payments. And this is, of course, very exciting news and something we've been looking forward to. So with that, thank you for joining us, guys, and let's talk about the announcement this week.
All right, well, when it comes to these micropayments, I mean, I couldn't have been more excited about this announcement. Jesse Whiteside and I were talking about this last week when we were in between our filming, but, you know, micropayments were once considered the killer DApp of the crypto space, and for good reason. It's a true frontier use case, which simply isn't possible with credit card digital payments. True micropayments would open a Pandora's box of additional use cases. The space appeared to abandon micropayments for other narratives like, you know, store of value and DeFi, not because it didn't see the potential, but because legacy blockchain platforms simply didn't have the capability to do micropayments due to high fees and throughput limitations, just like credit cards. Now we have Hedera making true micropayments a reality with a pilot program by Eftpos Australia. But to start, Rob, why don't you just tell us about your background and your journey in discovering Hedera?
Thanks, Brandon. So I'm a payments guy. I haven't always been a payments guy. I started off as an engineer in the British Army building battlefield computer systems back in the 90s. And we were building distributed nodal systems that were, transactionally secure for command and control. And so, as an engineer and as a kind of someone who kind of is a real geek at heart, I've carried that kind of level of engineering discipline and expertise all the way through my career. And it wasn't really until I met Lehman that I found someone else who kind of, presented things in a way which I kind of got inherently. But there was a long journey in between. I went from the British Army into Intel. I worked on supply chains for a couple of years. And then I found myself in banking in Europe. So I spent a number of years building up a number of payment systems. I did the real-time payments infrastructure in the UK and in Europe and SEPA. And so over the years, the payments aspects of my expertise grew. And so I've always had this love of the transfer of value and new engineering ways to achieve it. And to be fair, as we all know, the infrastructure that the banks operate on is pretty dated. And so there's plenty of innovative ways to kind of disrupt that. It's just the intent isn't always there. So I first got into blockchain in around 2014. Never a Bitcoin holder, other than to sort of on ramp and off ramp at the moment. But I was really fascinated with the use cases around blockchain and Bitcoin. And I participated in a lot of the early R3 meetings for one of the banks I was working with, and got exposed to some of the enterprise use cases that were looking at a blockchain. I then came to Australia about 5 years ago and worked with PwC, running their blockchain practice. It was a payments practice which kind of merged into a blockchain practice. And we ended up working or building systems that were based on both public and private blockchains. We started off by trying to de-anonymize Bitcoin, just to kind of put the cat among the pigeons with the maximalist out there. But there was we recognized that for a PwC and kind of with a client base that was super, top end of town enterprises, they needed to find a way to become comfortable with crypto, and that was, KYC is one of the things that is essential in that space. So we did that, and then we worked with other blockchains. We built our own platform, which was effectively a set of financial services capability on top of blockchains, agnostic of blockchains. And in doing that, we built our own colored coin stack. We integrated with Hyperledger, with multi-chain, and a number of others. But for me, there was never a single technology which really hit all the marks. The trilemma that we refer to these days was apparent everywhere, and you couldn't get the security of a public chain and the decentralization and the scale all together in one package. So I'd been looking for chains that would kind of come close to that, and I happened to be in the US in 2017. I was introduced to Manson Lehman, just kind of serendipity happened. And I remember it forever, I spent a couple of hours talking to Lehman about swirls and about what we were doing, and just trying to kind of assess the tech. And he described HCS to me, but of course it wasn't called HCS back in those days. He was talking about a layer that one could interact with and achieve consensus. And I said, well, that's consensus as a service. That's what you're offering. And I'm sure I wasn't the first to have said that, but he said yes, absolutely. And so we then found ways with PwC to work with Hedera during that kind of pre-OA period, and we did a few kind of smaller projects. But I was really have always been kind of piqued by the technology, so stayed close. I actually had dinner with Tom Trowbridge and Jordan in New York, and kind of explored all the avenues, but we couldn't quite make it work with PwC. And then I left PwC about 2.5 years ago, and set up this nodal consulting company where we continue to look at blockchain applications, but within the sustainable development space. So, save the world stuff, renewable energy, circular economies, financial inclusion. I wrote a book on financial inclusion with a colleague, in which we assessed a lot of these technologies, and actually wrote about Hedera in that book. And in doing that kind of assessment, it was kind of re-energized by the progress that happened. Oh, thanks for that. It's a long way out of date, by the way, that book. But the assessment that we did, and the progress that Hedera had made right up to immediately preceding OA, meant that I was able to really re-engage. And the thing that happened, as you'll remember, just before OA, was this big testing effort with the daily timestamp. Mm-hmm. Being a payments guy and playing with the daily timestamp and actually getting HBAR for the benefit of reading articles.
And for anybody that doesn't know, that are new to the Hedera world, that was a testing, a proof of concept itself on micropayments, but just done with HBAR and pretty much just for fun, right?
And done in reverse, right? You were getting paid to actually read,
That's right.
It was part of the Community Earn program.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was wonderful. And that kind of flipped some kind of switch in my head. You know, the business models are about to change dramatically when you can pay people for doing things. And this is a bit like what ad stacks are doing or plan to do. You know, when you're actually creating an incentive where, for a fraction of a cent potentially, you can reward people for certain behaviors, then business models just change overnight, and they will change overnight. I have no doubt about that.
No question.
So just bringing these things up to. Sorry, it was a very long intro.
That's fine.
But I'm quite old. So we in February I joined Eftpos ostensibly to run a digital identity project called Connect ID, which we've launched this week as well, confusingly. But digital identity is at the core of pretty much everything that we need to look at in the new digital economy space, whether it be underpinned by distributed ledger or some other tech. So working through, so I joined Eftpos because they've got this world-class vision about next generation payments innovation. And I was lucky enough to be asked to help them out with this digital identity project. And in doing so, we kind of established a rapport. We kind of created a model in order to drive a lot of the other payments innovation initiatives that had been backlogged for a while. And just in a conversation a few months ago, I said, well, have a look at this. And this is daily timestamp. This is what Hedera were doing last year. Wouldn't it be great if, as we'd have an informed opinion as part of this big payments innovation strategy with an Eftpos, we'd have an informed opinion about technology that could potentially be so radical, so economy shifting that we're on the front foot. Because I mean, Eftpos are a scheme like a Visa. It's a club of, or it's a legal framework rather, of members that agree to operate together in a particular way. And I'll come back to what Eftpos does in a minute. But the micropayments pitch that I made was all about kind of recreating the daily timestamp within an Australian context for Australian content providers. And it, you know, it hit the mark. It was the right kind of thing at the right kind of time. And then, of course, I went to Hedera and said, I want to recreate the daily timestamp. And they said, no, you don't want to do that. You want to do this because, so, you know, it's 9 months, right?
A lot of innovation in 9 months, right?
Yeah, and they said, well, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this, and you can bring all these together. And you know, it was kind of, that was the start of this thing a few months ago.
Okay.
And it's all kind of come together now this week.
So now Eftpos, it sounds like, is pretty much ubiquitous in Australia. Maybe you can touch a little bit more on what they are and exactly what was announced this past week. Sure.
So Eftpos are Australia's national infrastructure for debit cards. So every card issued, usually bank issued cards, pretty much all of them have an Eftpos logo on it as well. So it might be a Visa or MasterCard card, but it's also an Eftpos card. And in Australia, you're right, it's ubiquitous. The Eftpos is a verb. You know, people talk about paying with Eftpos. They don't really know what they're talking about when they say that, usually, but they're talking about the interaction at a retail outlet where you use a card to make a payment at a point of sale.
We used to have something like that in the U.S. It's probably not for the younger people, but it was called a MAC card, money access card. Jesse, you remember that?
I do not, man.
No. Okay.
But the key thing here is that Eftpos owns all this infrastructure throughout Australia, and merchants get the choice to to route their payments, their transactions through Eftpos as opposed to one of the international schemes, and it's significantly cheaper. So this is giving merchants choice to use Eftpos, and Australians just know it. It's always been there. It's one of these things that are part of the fabric of society, and yeah. So it's a scheme. It's owned by 19 of the iconic brands, I guess, in Australia. You've got the big four banks. You've got the big two retailers, Woolworths and Coles. You've got a number of international banks who are actually second-tier banks in Australia, like Citi, for example.
Okay.
And you've got payments aggregators and payment services companies, all as part of this I hesitate to say governing council of a national infrastructure. And the board represents the members, and it's like Switzerland. It's like a demilitarized zone, you know, where you've got a lot of otherwise competing businesses coming together effectively for the good of the nation, you know, in terms of a national infrastructure. So it's a very unique place, and perfectly placed for disruptive innovation and forward thinking, and the adoption of next generation technology.
I've been told that they often, it being a Western economy, it's used as a test bed a lot of times for financial innovation over there in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, the regulators aren't as forward thinking as in some other places in the world. You know, we're not a fintech hub. We've got a lot of fintech businesses, but we don't have the same regulatory reform as you've got in maybe San Francisco or in London or Tel Aviv. But that said, we've got a very stable economy with you know, sort of strong leadership and some amazing businesses. I've sat on the boards of a few of the businesses here. I'm deputy chairman of Blockchain Australia. We kind of the industry body for distributed ledger businesses in Australia, and it's a flourishing environment here.
Very exciting. Let's talk about the announcement and what the partnership entails and exactly what the proof of concept will be exploring.
Okay, so what we announced this week was a partnership between Hedera and Eftpos. As part of our payments innovation initiatives, which I've mentioned previously, we're going to be focusing on micropayments as a use case. We're going to be bringing together a lot of the great code that has been made available by Hedera through its repositories, through its experiments, and the example code that's made available. And we're going to use the paywall killer and subscription service use case so that a consumer can interact with an online content provider and consent either to receive marketing material or the normal spam that you get for accessing some content, or pay for that access with a digital Australian dollar stablecoin. So that manifests itself in a wallet with the potential to top up an account, which is denominated in Australian dollars, and then make payments at the cent or sub-cent level for access to online services.
So, sorry to interrupt you, Rob. The digital Australian dollar, is this something that the stable coin you mentioned, or the stable dollar you mentioned, is this something that is being developed specifically for this proof of concept, or is this something that has been in the works otherwise, or?
This is something new for us. but it'll be drawing heavily on some of that great stuff that we saw recently on the the tokenization series that I think Cooper and Tim McHale offered up. I've been building stablecoins for a number of years, and I truly, a stablecoin has to be fully backed, otherwise it's not stable. So the stablecoin we'll be using will be fully backed by Australian dollars. So if it says I've got $10 in my account, that's fully backed by $10 that I've purchased. Under the covers, it'll be using the tokenization service and the HBAR as fuel. But the consumer won't know that.
So just so we're clear and we can explain to the viewers, so this is Australian dollar that's similar to Tether or USDC, which are some stable coins we know out there, but instead of it being sanctioned by a exchange, it's sanctioned by the banks.
It will. Well, to start with, it won't be like a Tether because it won't be tradable on any exchanges.
Understood. Yeah.
It will also probably not exist outside of the ecosystem, the immediate ecosystem, because it's a digital representation on a distributed ledger of a redeemable fiat kind of value. Okay, so the redeemability is actually really important because you've got to be able to get money in and out of the system. So the way that I've done it in the past, where we did it with PwC, was just to escrow that amount, and you've got an immutable source of proof that you own a certain amount of that escrowed fiat. So the really interesting thing for me here is that I don't know of any other examples outside of banking experiments where you can interoperate with existing payments infrastructure and a distributed ledger.
Yeah,
so that's one. All the code is there. A lot of the code is there. It's kind of assembling a Lego set, a Lego kind of model of things that have already been done, and tweaking them where we need to, but then interoperating with the existing payments infrastructure and building a wallet and bringing all these things together. I'm particularly interested in the consent aspect as well, because the DID proof that Paul Manson published recently, the DID method, is a very interesting approach as well. Within kind of self-sovereign identity, and take money and issue a digital dollar. With that, the regulators will need to see that money is still held in an account, and you're effectively, you're providing a service, but the banks will provide other stuff at the back end if we choose to interconnect with them.
Okay, good.
Exciting times.
Yeah, no question.
There is.
One of the great things, and I do say it quite a lot, but one of the great things about HCS is it can be used for everything. You've got a single consensus layer that can be used to notarize data and data provenance. You can use to create these stable coins or tokenized services on. You can do everything on it. It's you don't have to build complicated code. You can do it in just a few lines of code, and your AppNet, which is the nomenclature we have to use now, the AppNet that connects to it is private. It can do whatever you want it to do, whether it be a super fast gaming service, an ads impression service, a coupon bureau, or a digital Aussie dollar. You can do it all on the same platform. That's the genius of Lehman's invention.
Yeah.
More so than anything, I don't see it I don't see it as a distributed ledger in a kind of blockchain sense anymore. I see it as a new internet protocol, and the way that the nodes are building up is very similar, very akin to the early days of the internet. The ARPANET and the internet, and nodes were forming, and commercial interests were forming around the nodes, and I think we're seeing exactly the same thing happening.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
And that if you think about it like that, with a kind of networks head on, it cuts away all of the crypto craziness that happens and the noise that we see in the channels, because actually it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
All that noise will go away. That no one thinks about, TCP/IP protocols anymore, other than network engineers. But it's effectively the same thing.
Well,
yeah, but that's half the fun. Come on, Rob.
I was a director of a crypto exchange for a year or so, and we sold to Kraken recently. But I do love the crypto side of things.
Yeah, it is fun. It is fun. But both.
Yeah.
Well, from my point of view,
too much higher if I talk too much about it.
Go ahead, Jesse.
From my point of view, it's just exciting to see some real world use cases here that are announced, and there's use cases that people explore and that people theorize would be a good fit for this platform or that platform. But it's exciting for me to have watched this thing evolve to the point now where we have not only these use cases which have been identified for years now, but it's going to take capital, it's going to take resources, it's going to take partnerships with big companies to get these things moving. And it's like, yeah, it's obvious some of this stuff will be possible, but it's a whole nother thing to expect that it's just going to happen. And so to have an announcement like this with the partnerships in place, it's just really exciting for me to see, even on the proof of concept scale, to know that this is actually happening. And yeah, it's just exciting, man. Thanks for being with us, Rob, and explaining that, and for all your hard work. And I'm glad you and Lehman met a few years ago serendipitously, and it led to this. That is exciting, man.
I defy anyone who's not spoken to Lehman in person not to become a complete advocate of this technology. It's it's so obvious. When the light goes on, it's so obvious.
It is, isn't it? But then you think of all the things that really need to happen for a few, even just a couple of these enterprise use cases to come on board. And then I feel that when this does happen and some of the early results come back, and companies, even different platforms, understand what the value of the consensus service will bring, that it will be something that will be more seamlessly integrated and maybe not even discussed much in terms of how projects are running. It might be sort of unspoken that, yeah, the consensus service from Hedera is at the base layer of this. That's kind of like a given. It's the best one out there. It's the cheapest one out there. And that's what we're going to use for that base level consensus protocol. So I hope that's where we're headed. That's my feeling on where we could be headed. And when we get results back, and when we see the volume of transactions starting to go up, additional use cases coming on, and how the network responds, then I think it's going to be really, really exciting. So yeah, I'm happy to be here with you guys. And thanks again, Rob. Anything else, guys, before we close up and move on here?
Well, is there anything you want to elaborate as far as the fit of micropayments with Hedera, or where you see micropayments going?
I see. There are all sorts of directions this could go in. With my futurists head on, I envisage a future with smart cities and IoT devices that have got delegated authority from my identity, that are paying each other in fractions of a cent. Mm-hmm. When you've got a transactional cost of 1/100th of a penny, there's a lot of leeway to actually get right down to that level.
Sure.
So the billions of devices kind of paying each other is quite an interesting concept. But then, of course, you'll have a very different set of value movement. There'll be waves of value. You can see, and there'll be an ebb and flow within an infrastructure of these tiny payments taking place that is simply not possible now. And then new business models will be built from that. I don't think we've got a clue what genie will be let out of the bottle once this kind of arrives. So I'm very excited. Next steps between now and then, there are lots of use cases, and I'd actually like to see some more collaboration. I'd like to see the likes of telcos, because I mean, telcos are actually quite a really interesting use case as well, because of mobile data money, and the sorts of things they've done in Africa with M-Pesa, and the telcos have stepped into the gap where banks haven't allowed financial services to flourish. So really keen to see what happens with that, and all the other business models that are going to change. I particularly like the use case of being able to pay content providers or pay syndicated content providers in real time, and you don't have this problem with Spotify artists having 3 years to get paid, for example. And Tune FM, I mean, that's a perfect use case. Thank you for that. It's almost as if it was planned. The combination of a use case like Tune FM's with micropayments, as it says there, is really, really key. And getting the artists paid just enables all this talent to rise to the surface and not be controlled by middlemen everywhere.
Disintermediation, right? And this is another cool piece of news this week, and these guys might be a good guest to have on the forum sometime. Maybe I'll reach out. I believe they announced they're going to be building the first token on the Hedera network, the Jam token, that would be the thing that facilitates their creators being compensated on Tune FM.
And you got that little tagline right there: when the music gets played, the artist gets paid, just like what Rob was kind of alluding to there a second ago. And actually, Andrew Antar, the founder of Tune FM, is right there in my hometown. So I'm sure we could have him on, no question.
Yeah, we should reach out. A bunch of cool use cases to talk about, and really exciting to see some of these things come into fruition here.
So what we could do in this use case is actually, Australian artists could be part of this network, and we could maybe provide some kind of interoperability between the Jam token and the digital dollar.
Yeah, so there's obvious micropayment use cases, and Tune FM streaming is a perfect example of that. Of course, paying for content like movies or videos or anything along those lines. I think that's the first layer of micropayments that everybody thinks of. But like you were saying, I think there's going to be some next level stuff once you go down this rabbit hole of Internet of Things and smart cities and things like that.
We'll be curious to see if there's what the value is in terms of dollars on just from processing fees. Not only disintermediating to some extent, as you mentioned there, Rob, with something like Tune FM, but is there a savings to be had just in terms of just processing fees, or will this be sort of integrated with that legacy system in a way that won't disrupt it too much?
Yeah, well, those are all things that we'll be looking at during our proof of concept. The commerciality of the offering is really key. I think we all understand that the technology will work. Can it be made to work in a commercial context is the real driver behind all of this.
I definitely like the fact that micropayments make it possible for you to become the customer again instead of the product with using ads for everything.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this is going to be a proof of concept. Can you tell us about what the next steps might be, or is that still under wraps?
Well, I mean, the nature of proofs of concept is that you experiment, you learn, you reset, you move on. Okay, and you don't really know what the ultimate destination is because you're taking baby steps. And within a kind of an enterprise, you've got the challenges of the BAU to deal with as well. I mean, we've done pretty well in insulating ourselves from the BAU operation, which has to operate 24/7 and 6 nines uptime. So it's we can't get in the way of that. but at the same time we can. I've got the wonderful job as entrepreneur in residence to be the disruptive force at the edge, and where we can integrate, we will look to do. But seek first to understand. We need to understand the implications of this world-changing technology on an operation which is so deeply set within the national infrastructure. And I'll be happy to come back in a couple of months' time to tell you how it's going and tell you what the next steps are.
All right, looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's put that on the calendar now, so so we can stay up to date. Keep the community up to date. Because
sounds good.
For the community. I was talking to Rob before we jump back on here. I feel very fortunate to have Rob and to be bringing this news, more or less in real time to the community, which is what this forum is all about. So thanks again for watching.
It's a great community. I wanted to do this first, for the community, and with this forum that is really. It's important that we get the message out there quickly and get the news to the community as it's always growing. And we've got a pretty strong community that's been through some peaks and troughs over the last 6 months, and they deserve to celebrate good news like this.
Absolutely. It sounds like Rob has a pretty fun job. Sounds like someplace I'd want to be, on the edge of disruption.
Absolutely. At the center of disruption, on the edge of the BAU. Right?
Oh, okay. I got you.
I am the disruption.
I got you. Good stuff.
You guys want to take a look at some charts here and just see if anything's happened since our last look at TradingView?
That's a good idea. So, yeah, we've been looking at this bull flag, at this wedge pattern for a really long time. And actually, the news that we had here kind of had its breakout. Now, we've broken out of this pattern before, and it's pulled back and created a new wedge pattern. So we'll see if this continues. I know a lot of people, whether they're dollar cost averaging or trading, they'll use the distributions, and usually the biggest distribution is the SAFT 1 and 2 distribution on the 22nd of each month. And what they'll do is, either if they're a trader, they'll sell before the distribution and then buy back in after, because they think there's going to be some sell pressure there. But I think announcements like this make us realize how risky that can be, because we expect a lot of these kind of announcements in the months to come. And if they make an announcement right before a distribution like this, we can see an uptrend in the price. I do think, in general, the crypto market is a little bit dense. And I think that a lot of them have made the decision on Hedera months past, maybe based off of some of Eric Wall's FUD or something like that, which I think has been thoroughly disproven. But and until it slaps them in the face, they're not going to turn around. But I think that's exactly what Hedera is going to do. It's going to get everybody's attention, and there is going to be a pretty good shift here in the market. But yeah, I think as far as what the chart looks like right now, we're breaking above that wedge pattern we've seen, and I think that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, it is good to see some positive movement and some consecutive green candles, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, I think we're building a good-looking chart, no question. Rob, have you had fun in this market thus far?
I'm not a trader. I'm just an engineer. I don't pretend to understand these charts, and
Me neither.
I think it's way too early to do technical analysis on some of this stuff. I mean, market sentiment is market sentiment, right? And
sure.
As you say, a lot of the crypto market, it's pure speculation and gambling. So no, I don't want to put my kids' education on the line because of that.
No question about that. Only use what you can afford to lose, right?
I do adhere and enjoy your DCA, your DIP process. So buying the dip is pretty good.
Yeah, and for anybody that doesn't know, the DIP is the Dynamic Investment Program, and essentially all it is a way to be more aggressive when the price falls and be less aggressive when the price goes up. It's just another way to kind of dollar cost average in. And I do have some videos, and I'll link those if anybody wants to take a look at that. But it helps, especially psychologically, dealing with these very volatile assets, or at least it has for me in the past.
I like to just put a blindfold on and not look for extended periods of time.
I think we'll look back in a year or so and scratch our heads that everyone was so kind of got so worked up at whether or not it was 3.8 or 4.2. You know, that tiny little mark, is going to be a drop in the ocean. But what do I know? I'm just an engineer.
Well, we'll see. I think you're in good company in thinking that.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Rob, thanks for joining us. Very exciting news. How can people reach you if they have questions on what's going on?
Well, my Twitter handle is Rob_Nodal, Nodl. The website is nodl.io, nodl.io. That's me personally. Obviously, I represent Eftpos, so you can access the Eftpos page if you flip to that one, Jesse. And there's contact details on that if you need to get hold of me through that, and you've got any interest on either the identity program that we're running, which we didn't have a chance to talk about today, but maybe in a couple of months' time. And obviously the micropayments proof of concept.
And I've also seen you in the.
Yeah, pretty easy to find on LinkedIn as well.
I was going to say I've seen you in the Telegram chat as well for people who are admins, or for people who are in the general Hashgraph chat on Telegram. I think, is it Sharky Rob? I'm
Sharky Rob. Yeah. It's not a statement about my business practices. My hobbies, my only hobby really is photographing sharks. So I travel around the world to swim and photograph with sharks as part of a kind of a conservation bent that I have. So
that's exciting.
I'm known as Sharky to most of my friends.
Very cool.
Well, Rob, on behalf of the whole crypto community, or I'm sorry, the whole Hashgraph community, I want to thank you. Yeah, the rest of them. No, I wanted to thank you because, I mean, we've been looking at cookie crumbs for a while. We pretty much say that the cookie crumbs are the clues that Hedera is a big deal, and whether it be the great council members we have coming on online, or whether it be the Coupon Bureau or Ads DAX, or how many transactions per day we're getting, all these are crumbs showing us that Hedera is a big deal, but you gave us the whole cookie, so we appreciate it.
There'll be a new cookie next week, no doubt, from the next big deal. Yeah.
Oh, hopefully.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. This is Hedera Forum, episode 10. If you have questions about us or would like to reach out regarding anything in the program, let us know how we're doing, what you'd like to see us cover. You can reach us here, Hedera Forum at Proton Mail. And Rob, Brandon, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you around.
See you, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.